March 28, 2014, Brisbane, Australia. In Corio Park, a storm had recently rolled through, and the heavy rain meant that the usually busy place was quiet. This was somewhere people went jogging, walked their dogs, and spent time with friends. But in the early hours of this March morning, there were so few around. For the ones that were there, they noticed a woman who appeared to be asleep on a bench under a rotunda by the river, located between bridges and the William Jolly Bridge. Believing she was homeless, many walked past her and ignored her. Then someone decided to check on her. Sources differ as to who this was, with some saying it was a jogger and others saying it was a homeless man. When the newspaper and jacket that were on top of her were pulled back, she was found to be naked. She had been savagely beaten and raped. She had been robbed and her possessions stolen. She had no pulse and she wasn't breathing. Attempts to revive her didn't work. She was dead. Before long, the emergency services were at the scene and a murder investigation was underway. Although they didn't know who she was, officers had a feeling about one of the first places they should begin their investigations. They went straight over to the Oscar Homeless Hostel, located not far from the park. Oscar had a curfew of 9 p.m., and a failure to comply with the rules would result in residents being asked to leave. The police needed to check that everyone was in their bed and accounted for one resident was not. He had not been back for several nights, and he had left all of his belongings there. Today, reporter Lauren Ellis joins us from Brisbane. And Lauren, a police any closer to solving this mystery? Good morning, Georgie. Well, last night, police said the search at this unit complex behind me was a critical part of the murder investigation. Detectives were seen entering the complex. They were inside for around 1 hour before they left with bags of evidence, and a man believed to be in his 20s was also seen assisting police with their inquiries. Thousands of miles away in France, a man was sat at his computer, scrolling through social media, when he saw a post that stopped him in his tracks. Police in Brisbane had posted the jewelry of a young woman they were trying to identify. She had been found murdered in a local park. He recognized it straight away and contacted the police. He knew it was his girlfriend, 21-year-old Sophie Collombet. Police have confirmed that. They believe it was a foreign exchange student from France that was found on the banks of the Brisbane River, and that she had been living here for around 1 year. And this breakthrough came after police received a phone call from the victim's boyfriend and also a friend who both said that she was missing now. Police divers yesterday spent hours scouring the banks of the Brisbane River and also looking through CCTV footage from neighboring businesses in the hope of identifying a suspect. At this stage, as you said, the woman's body is yet to be formally identified, but it is the third foreign exchange student to have been murdered in Brisbane in the last 4 months, Georgie. All right, Lauren Ellis, thank you. Sophie was originally from France. She was studying in Australia at Griffith University. Having arrived there the previous February on a study visa, she was a real adventurer. Someone who excelled in so many areas and was always up for a challenge. Her brother Guillaume said she was very curious and loved traveling. She had friends everywhere, but moving so far away from loved ones is always a challenge, and this was no different for Sophie. She was homesick and missed France, her family, and her boyfriend Boris desperately. Boris had been out in Australia with her, but his visa had run out, and when he had to leave, Sophie made the decision that she too would later follow. She'd been working very hard to try and save up as much money as possible so she could go on a trip back home. She had done door-to-door sales taught French, and had taken any work she could. Her plan was that she would go back in June. Sophie was always in touch with her family, and on March 16th she mailed her mom, signing it off affectionately with kisses. This would be the last time her mother heard from her. On March 27th, Sophie had been walking home from a night class at Griffith University. After classes had finished at around 8:30 p.m., she was ready for home. She had been offered a lift home by a classmate, but she declined and got on a bus with her friend to the Cultural Center terminal. Her friend would be the last person to see her alive. After getting off the bus and leaving her stop, with her umbrella and bag in hand, she headed to her apartment on Key Street. Walking down by the Brisbane River, she was captured on CCTV just before 9 p.m. at the Coriopa Bridge. But what had happened from there was not clear. But the police did know one thing. This was a violent and brutal attack. And she would have been able to see her apartment from where she was. The post-mortem revealed the many awful injuries she had suffered. She had black eyes, bruises all over her elbows, hands and feet bruising on her spine, and tiny puncture marks on her behind and feet. She had died from significant head injuries, including a hemorrhage and fractures to her skull. She had 128 external injuries. When people had walked past her as she lay naked in the cold, covered by nothing but newspapers and a jacket, she was just clinging to life. Sophie had actually survived for several hours after the attack. It's disgusting. You look at car accidents, and they're bad enough and sudden, Detective Inspector Rod Kemp told reporters. But for someone to be brutally attacked in this manner, it's just disgraceful.
Police have released security footage of 21-year-old French student Sophie Collombet. In the moments leading up to her murder, it's been almost a week since the business student was bashed to death beside the river in South Brisbane. More police will patrol the area overnight as the hunt for her killer intensifies.
You would think there was a lot of people around, but it was raining heavily. So yeah, no it is. It's shocking. Police divers found her umbrella in the Brisbane River. They're still looking for her clothes, boots, handbag, and possibly her smartphone and tablet. But what was the motive behind the murder? Police say at this stage, there's no evidence to suggest the killer was known to Miss Collombet, and are treating this as an opportunistic attack. I don't think there's anything to suggest. You could put a tag of a foreign student on. I think she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Foot patrols have been bolstered around the park, and officers are interviewing walkers in the hope of finding a new lead. News of the murder has made headlines in Sophie's hometown in northern France. Overseas reports are calling her death mysterious. Back home, uni students from across Brisbane are planning a vigil in the coming days. We're deeply saddened by this, and we're having this vigil next Thursday night in memory of her, to honor her. And during a meeting with the French ambassador, the premier offered his condolences and assistance to the Collombet family. They're now arranging the heartbreaking return home of her body. Josh Babbitt, ABC News, Brisbane. The investigation into her murder was huge, involving more than 60 police officers. They couldn't find her clothes. They had no weapon and also no suspects. Many in Brisbane were in shock, and the outrage was palpable, with those who had known her being left absolutely devastated. Her roommate said she was a kind, gentle, quiet person. Who on earth would want to hurt her? In the days that followed Sophie's murder, a makeshift memorial began to form in the park where she was found, with many leaving flowers and tributes to her. I did not know you, Sophie. Read one note. But I had to be here just to show you how much I care. Another red angel. I never knew you, but I will never forget you. R.I.P. Beautiful girl. #safe streets for Sophie. People were understandably frightened. Sophie was the 4th international student to be killed in that area recently. And although the murders were not linked, the police said they were deeply concerning. Queensland State Premier Campbell Newman maintained that those visiting from overseas were safe. I believe it is safe, not only for international students, but for Brisbane students, he said. Thankfully, they found the offenders in those other situations. The police carried on collecting evidence from the scene and also started trolling through more of the CCTV footage from that night to see if it picked anything up. And sure enough, it did. The same man, who had not been accounted for at the hostel, had been caught on CCTV in the same area as Sophie that night. Benjamin James Millward. Benjamin had a criminal record that included burglary and violent offenses, but no sexual offenses. He had been released from prison in December 2, 2012 for assault, and then recalled after breaching his parole, and had been released the previous July. He also had a history of drug offenses, causing a public nuisance and robbery. He had written on a Facebook page called "Probation Sucks, Probation is Easy." Jail and parole suck, you have it easy on probation. Look, it's part of the investigation, the ongoing investigation into the death of Sophie Collins Bayham. Detectives have identified a number of persons of interest, so witnesses are surrounding this matter. And we're currently asking for the public, in particular, a certain person, who we believe was at the scene around the time of we believe when Sophie was killed, and that person we wish to give to the public through the media, if I may. His name's Benjamin James Millward. He is 25 years of age. He's 180 centimeters proportion of build. He has a dragon tattoo on the left side of his chest. Short, fair hair, hazel eyes. This person has come to our notice through speaking to other witnesses and examining CCTV in the area. We've asked people if they know this person, perhaps not to approach him. We don't know what his involvement is in the matter at this stage, but he is a person that we wish to speak to. His involvement in the matter at this stage, the totality of it we're not sure of, but obviously for personal safety, if people know this person, if they could contact Crime Stoppers or the Dutton Park CIB, I would advise people not to approach him if he is involved in this matter, and clearly he could be a risk. Obviously it'd be easier or better if members of the public could contact Crime Stoppers or the Dutton Park Criminal Investigation Branch. Patrols were stepped up and locals and businesses were shown photographs of him, hoping that someone would have seen him. Benjamin was recorded getting onto a train at South Brisbane Station at 11:23 p.m. that night. The train had terminated at Bowen Hills Station, where he was again seen on CCTV. He appeared to be unsettled and headed in the direction of Abbotsford Road. Whether he has just taken flight or not, we don't know, he said. It's believed he slept near the airport before taking the airport train to Varsity Lakes. It is believed he then walked and hitchhiked to Ballina. His cousin took to Facebook to urge him to come forward and talk to the police. If anyone has seen my beloved cousin Benny, please contact the police. Love you, Benny. Everything is going to be okay. His brother, Josh, also urged him to come forward and clear his name, as did his mother, Diane. We love you, Ben. Please come home, she said. Why don't you call us to sort it all out? It's for Sophie's family, they need to know. She added that she didn't believe he was guilty of what he was being accused of. Her family were deeply moved by the amount of support they had been shown, Guillaume said. The French embassy, the policeman, the Brisbane town hall people, everybody in Australia has done absolutely everything that is possible to help in any way. There's a website made for us in Australia where people have been posting messages and they get translated into French. French people living in Australia offer support to many people. The problem now is to get her back as soon as possible. A nationwide manhunt was underway, and no stone was being left unturned. Soon they would get their first major breakthrough. A hostel in Ballina got in touch with the police on April 7th to tell them that he had stayed there. A few nights ago, investigators found that he had registered with a job agency in Coffs Harbour, New South Wales. Officers were dispatched, and less than 2 weeks after her murder, Benjamin Millward was in custody. He said he could only remember some of what had happened, but told the police when he was being arrested, "What I've done is just horrible. I didn't intend for nothing to happen." He also told the police he was a bit of a sex addict. He was extradited back to Queensland to face the police there. The outrage and disgust that so many people felt soon turned into action. More than 2,000 people marched through Brisbane and held a candlelight vigil in memory of Sophie. The president of the Postgraduate Student Association at Griffith University, where Sophie had studied, addressed those in attendance and recalled Sophie's laughter and joy. 6 months later, and the laughter has gone, he said. We all know the drill when it comes to personal safety, but something like this you simply can't prepare for. We owe it to Sophie to ensure that Brisbane is a city which is not only safe in the brochure, but in real life, he added. Those in attendance followed a group of pipers into the Coriolan Park, where candles were lit. It was clear just how deeply this had impacted those living, not only in Brisbane, but the wider area. And Australia as a whole. The organizer of the vigil said that the enormous turnout showed that Brisbane cared about violence against women. Violence against women is happening, and it's not okay. She said it's so important to do this, to also provide comfort to her family, who are thousands of miles away, on the other side of the world. One attendee said she's everybody's daughter, and she's everybody's sister. Sophie's body would eventually be taken back to France for her funeral, and in her hometown, more than 1,200 people gathered. Her parents G and Karine, her brothers Lionel and Guillaume, led the procession of 50 of Sophie's nearest and dearest, including her boyfriend Boris, all of them carrying long-stemmed carnations. Audible sobs could be heard as the procession walked. Members of the musical club that Sophie had played the lead flute in provided the music, with them helping each other get through the pain by saying that this was for Sophie. 8 books of condolences were filled next to a photograph of Sophie hugging a koala at the Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary in Brisbane. Benjamin Millward was eventually charged with deprivation of liberty, armed robbery, rape, and murder. And it was soon time for his committal hearing, where it would be decided by a magistrate if the evidence presented was enough to take the case to trial. That evidence, coupled with the witness testimonies, would help piece together a timeline of events. He had told police he couldn't remember much due to the drugs he had taken that night, but he could remember sexually assaulting her. He said he didn't have a weapon, but did recall striking her. That day he had injected crystal methamphetamine and drank huge amounts of wine, beer and bourbon. A fellow resident of Oscar named Justin had supplied the drugs to Benjamin, and the pair had met again in the evening by the Riverside Rotunda where they took more drugs. One of the witnesses who had taken drugs with Benjamin that day said, "It did not affect one's memory. I can still recall what I'm doing. It doesn't so much affect your memory but your stamina. You're fully aware of what you can and can't do." He added that the amount of drugs taken that day was fairly bad. She had walked towards the rotunda just before 9 p.m. As she was making her way home, Benjamin had attacked her, violently raped her, and beat her as she clung on to life. He told her he would go and get help, but he didn't. He threw her belongings into the river and fled. He said he panicked and instead bought a train ticket to Ipswich and left her to die. He didn't end up getting the train, choosing instead to go to Coffs Harbour in New South Wales. A forensic scientist said that DNA had been taken from underneath Sophie's fingernails. This DNA was 1.1 million times more likely to have come from Benjamin than not. The evidence really did speak for itself. Now that the committal proceedings were out of the way, it was just time to wait for his trial. But before it was due to start, the man accused of killing French student Sophie Collombet in Brisbane in 2014 has pleaded guilty to raping and murdering her. Benjamin's defense lawyer said he was sorry for what he had done and that he had written a letter of apology to Sophie's family. He could be seen tearing up as he sat in the dock, with his head slumped. Sophie's family traveled to Australia. For the sentencing, they cried in court. As victim impact statements were read, the Collombets flew across the world for today, but it's a different world to the one they once knew. The day they've learned of Sophie's demise. The world collapsed around them and has never been the same since. Sophie Collombet was a 21-year-old French student studying abroad as Millwood was taken away. He said, "I'm so sorry to Sophie's family." An apology that wasn't accepted. They want to soldier on, and they want to try and get on with their life as best they can. Brisbane's Lord Mayor met the Collombets this afternoon, and they've received cards, flowers, and letters. Sophie's boyfriend Boris had left Australia just 6 weeks before her death. He had been taking sleeping pills and sedatives in order to cope with the pain. It was now time for him to be sentenced. Benjamin Millward was sentenced to life in prison for murder, with a minimum non-parole period of 20 years, and 15 years for rape to run concurrently. The sentencing remarks by Supreme Court Justice and Lyons were filmed for the first time in Queensland history. She died not far from this courthouse. I can see the spot from my room. This young woman died at your hands. You have caused her death. It is so hard to understand how you could have acted in that way. The sentence I'm about to impose denounces publicly your conduct and communicates to you society's absolute condemnation of your conduct. You attacked a defenseless woman. You showed her no respect. You attacked her inherent dignity as a person. You attacked her dignity as a woman. You treated her appallingly and then left her. You walked away. I understand the term in French is reclusion. Criminel. A perpetuite. In either language, the meaning is clear. You will forever be serving a sentence of life imprisonment. To show that Sophie would never be forgotten, a memorial stone was erected for her, depicting mountains and a butterfly, The mountains could be seen from her home in France. And her brother Guillaume said that he had had the butterfly added, saying that several days after her death, he saw one nearby and asked it for comfort. The butterfly then flew over and landed on his hand and stayed for several minutes. We have covered cases like Sophie's on the channel, before women like Jill Marr and Eurydice Dixon. Women who were simply walking home. One thing that always stands out is the way in which Australia responds to such tragedies, taking to the streets showing their solidarity and the endless compassion for people they have never met. And that is no different in Sophie's case. To think that Sophie was alive after the attack, and knowing that people had walked past her and not realized the seriousness of the situation is, quite frankly, devastating for all involved. She was by all accounts a remarkable young woman, never daunted by a challenge, big or small, and always ready to embrace whatever life had to offer. As her family said of her, "Your life has only ever been about kindness, overflowing energy and happiness, and a simple smile that never disappeared from your face. Sophie, may you be our daughter, our sister, our love, and our friend. You will appear in every wink, in every little flower, and every sunrise of the day."